Hello again, and welcome to another episode of Haunted History. This time we're visiting the mysterious Fayette Historic State Park, located in Fayette, Michigan. Nestled in between Snail Shell Harbor and Sand Bay on beautiful Big Bay de Noc, on the southern side of the Upper Peninsula, Fayette Historic State Park is well known in the ghost hunting community as a paranormal hotspot. Many theories exist as to what or perhaps whom is haunting the former industrial community, but most agree that if you hear a voice in the woods on a summer night in Fayette Historic State Park, you are hearing the voice of one Dr. Bardolph Hogstad. According to the Fayette, Michigan Historical Society, the late Dr. Hogstad moved to Fayette seemingly alone and very secretive about his life before. Even to this day, very little is known about the doctor, even to the degree that no one has been able to prove that Dr. Bardolph Hogstad was a legitimate doctor or physician of any sort. Whether they believed his medical credentials or not, it didn't take locals long to conclude that their newest resident was at best a little strange, at worst, well. The only secret about Bardolph Hogstad that has been exposed is the fact that he did not move to Fayette alone. Hogstad had arrived with a young boy, whose name we'll never know. The mother's identity has remained a mystery to this day, leaving some to theorize that she was murdered immediately following childbirth by the so-called doctor himself. A scenario that becomes quite plausible once you learn the legend of Bardolph Hogstad. Not long after his arrival, it became common for locals to hear faint screams coming from the dark woods of what is now Fayette Historic State Park. Over the course of the summer of 1881, the screams had become louder and more frequent, resulting in the local sheriff leading a small group of volunteers into the woods by torchlight on a hot August evening. The screaming had become unbearable, but what the small army of makeshift deputies would discover that night was unimaginable and would haunt each man for the rest of his time. As told generations ago by those very men who were there, just minutes after the torch-wielding group of would-be vigilantes entered the forest, the screaming subsided. The silence was deafening, albeit brief, as it was soon interrupted by consecutive gunshots, followed by an eerie, even quieter silence. Soon the group would discover the source of the gunshots when they came upon a discharged Colt .45 revolver, still firmly held in the hand of Dr. Bardolph Hogstad, who, to the shock and horror of the volunteers, had not only used the gun to end his own life, he had also used it to end the life of an unknown male, estimated at the time to be around the age of 8. The young male had appeared to have been brought into the woods by the doctor for some sort of ritualistic discipline. Further investigation and a crude autopsy concluded that the child had not only been the victim of violent abuse, but he had been used as something of a surgical test patient for Dr. Hogstad, who had apparently been performing ill-prepared, archaic, and unnecessary surgery on the young boy for quite some time. In 2007, the bodies of Dr. Hogstad and the young boy were exhumed from a state cemetery for further forensic investigation. Among the results, it was determined that the young man was not nearly as young as first believed. It is now the consensus that the young boy's actual age was somewhere between 13 and 15 years old, suggesting that he had been suffering from severe malnutrition years before his tragic demise. Even more shockingly, through DNA testing, it was determined that the young man the doctor had been torturing and experimenting on for years was, in fact, the doctor's own biological son. Modern visitors to this day still claim to hear faint screaming coming from that very same location, leaving some to wonder if the doctor is somehow still in those woods, torturing a young man whose voice was only ever heard when he tried to cry out for help. Help that was ultimately too late. The tragic fact was that it had been too late for the young man for a long time. And now Dr. Bardolph Hogstad and his teenage son are destined to spend eternity replaying the sins of a soulless man every night on the grounds of Fayette Historic State Park.